Sometimes nature reveals a power so enormous that it leaves the world speechless. In 1972, a passenger aircraft prepares to leave Uruguay, South America, heading towards Santiago, Chile. On board 1972, a passenger aircraft prepares to leave Uruguay, South America, heading towards Santiago, Chile. On board believed they were beginning a normal journey, a simple flight across South America. No one knew that this aircraft was heading toward one of the most dangerous environments. Flight had one major challenge ahead: crossing the Andes mountain range, a massive wall of ice and rock standing thousands of feet above the ground. Had another plan. As the aircraft moved closer, the weather began to change. The skies became darker. Visibility started disappearing. The storm intensified. The crew made the safest decision they could. Flight 571 was diverted to Mendoza, Argentina, where everyone would spend the night, hoping the weather would improve by morning. But the weather still wasn't good. The captain had crossed these mountains many times before. Experience gave him confidence, but confidence alone could not control the mountain. At exactly 2:01 p.m., took off once again. The crew believed the remaining journey would take less than an hour. No one on board. 18,000 feet, the aircraft entered the heart of the Andes. Thick clouds swallowed the mountains. Outside the cockpit, there was almost nothing to see. They had already crossed the Andes. The crew contacted Santiago Air Traffic Control and requested permission to descend. Based on the positions from air traffic control, the pilots began descending toward 11,500 feet. Everything appeared normal inside the cockpit. But without warning, the clouds opened. A towering wall of rock and ice suddenly filled the windshield. The crew had not cleared the Andes. They were flying directly toward them. In a fraction of a second, the aircraft's tail slammed into the mountainside. The impact tore away the rear section, instantly changing the fate of everyone on board. With the tail gone, the aircraft became impossible to control. One wing struck the mount was now nothing more than a shattered fuselage hurtling toward the glacier below. Traveling at nearly 350 kilometers per hour, the remaining fuselage slammed onto the glacier and skidded across the ice. Within seconds, Flight 570.
Then, silence benumbed their lives. 33 were still alive, many of them seriously injured. Rested at more than 3,500 meters above sea level, hidden deep within the Andes. No roads, no villages. Rescue would not be easy.
Rescue teams launched aircraft across the Andes. Pilots searched every valley and every ridge, hoping to find Flight 571 before darkness swallowed the crash. Search aircraft swept across the Andes. The survivors listened carefully as engines echoed through the mountains. Rescue was close. Covered the mountains. The survivors transformed the broken fuselage into a shelter, would arrive the next morning. None of them realized this mountain would become their prison. Dropped far below freezing. Every breath became a battle. The mountain had claimed more lives. Hope remained. The search aircraft passed almost directly overhead. The survivors waved, shouted, and prayed to be seen. Never knew they had been only moments away. Every passing hour reduced their chances of survival. Desperate to attract attention, the survivors climbed onto the wreckage and tried to create a visible SOS signal. Ran out, they searched for another solution. Using their suitcases, they built a massive cross on the snow, hoping it would finally catch the attention of the search aircraft. Search aircraft passed overhead once again. The survivors screamed, waved their arms, and prayed. But the mountains remained silent. No one saw. They understood a painful truth. Rescue might not come anytime soon. They began adapting to the mountain into drinking water, carefully conserving every resource they had. By the 8th day, every remaining piece of food had wasted. Hunger was no longer a feeling. It had become a constant companion. The freezing wind never stopped. During the day, sunlight reflected off the snow with blind temperature dropped even further. Every hour became another test of an engine made their hearts race. They rushed outside, waving and shouting, but once again the search aircraft disappeared into the clouds without ever seeing them. Despite everyone's efforts, Nando's younger sister could not recover from her injuries. For Nando, the mountain had now taken almost everything. Then came the shattering moment.
Search operations for Flight 571 are suspended.
The outside world believed no one could be alive. The radio changed everything. Until that moment, they believed someone was coming. Now they understood the truth. The world had stopped looking. They turned the wreckage into their only chance of survival. Seat cushions became insulation. Seat covers became boots. Every piece of the airplane was transformed. Unbearable. With no food, no rescue, and no wildlife in the frozen mountains, The survivors faced an impossible decision. For many, this choice conflicted deeply with their beliefs. They spoke together, prayed together, and promised that if the situation had been reversed, they would have wanted the crash, the freezing nights, and the loss of hope. But the Andes had one more devastating test waiting. High above them,
October 29th, while the survivors slept inside the broken fuselage, the mountain began to move. High above them, the avalanche slammed into the wreckage with overwhelming force. Thousands of tons of snow buried the fuselage, turning their fragile shelter into a frozen. Stopped. Everything went black. Snow had filled the cabin. The survivors were trapped beneath the mountain, struggling for air as every breath became harder than the last.
Even more lives. Those who remained alive faced another heartbreaking reality. The mountain had struck again, and their group had grown even smaller. 3 days, the survivors fought to escape the snow that had buried them. Using nothing but their hands and broken pieces of the aircraft, they slowly carved a path back. Escaping the avalanche, the survivors faced an undeniable truth. Staying at the crash site meant certain death. If anyone was going to live, as they crossed the frozen landscape, they made an unexpected discovery. The aircraft's detached tail section lay partially buried beneath the clothing, and even an aircraft battery. For the first time in weeks, possible that the emergency radio might be brought back to life. But it was worth survived the crash. They had survived the freezing nights. They had survived the avalanche. But the greatest challenge still lay ahead. Beyond these mountains,